Welcome to Anibros episode 148, also known as Mobile Suit Anibros Part 3. Today the bros discuss 0083 Stardust Memory and Gundam Unicorn, so get ready to press stop because mech discussion is coming up next. Welcome to Anibros. We're here once again as the bros, as the cousins. You can go to our website at www.anibrospodcast.com. You can visit all of our fine friends' material at www.anibroscreative.com. Yeah, you can find us by Googling, probably. We're on all the fine receptacles of information like Spotify and Google Podcasts and iTunes.
Yeah, we're everywhere.
We've always been there. We're not going away, as far as I know. And it'd be great if you could listen and get those metrics up. Because at this point, it's like we're talking into a void, and all five listeners that comment. You're our only beacon, I would say.
We're like cicadas. We emerge from the muck every period of time, and we scream, and then we go back away.
Well, when you say go back away, are you implying that we die and fall
we are
out
resurrected.
of the trees? And
we reinvent ourselves each time.
Okay,
because this is now a Gundam podcast, after all.
That's true. We took a break from Gundam to talk about Eva, but now we're back.
It was a great episode.
We're back to talk about more of those big mechanized suits that people love or hate.
Yeah, I hope people weren't like, oh, thank God, they're back to talking about Evangelion. They're not talking about Gundam anymore. Tricked you. We're here.
Yeah, surprise part 3 of our always was planned to be a 3-part series on Gundam. I think this time it won't be like 19 hours long. Probably. Don't quote me.
Probably not. I mean, we'll see. I have thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, there's no time limit here at Anibros Studios. We can record as long as we can talk, which is a long time. So we'll see. I think the listeners were happy. We got comments on our last one. Thank you to everyone who comments once again. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great to not just be shouting into a void, to be like, do people download this or listen at all? Or are we just wasting our time?
Oh, no, they definitely download. We're not wasting our time. It's about the friends you make along the way. We don't hate each other yet.
That's true.
Close.
Not yet. Right. So, but before we talk about Gundam, let's do our obligatory beginning segment of what have you been watching? So, what have you been watching?
Oh, I watched Gundam today. But in all seriousness, I've actually been reading a lot lately, so I haven't been watching a lot of anime, which I know there's some good stuff out right now. And I feel bad because people are always telling me like, oh, you should check this out or you should finish this. And I'm like, yeah, I hear you. But, we just survived a pandemic and I'm not quite in anime fighting shape yet.
Well, hold on. You can go ahead and speak for yourself when you say survived in the past tense, the pandemic. Here in the glorious Nihon, we are still battling the pandemic. So I would appreciate your I don't know, what's like the equivalent of an ableist, but for this situation.
Sorry, you're right. It's a very privileged position that I'm like, my country finally got their shit together and kind of figured it out. The current strategy, which is working in a depressing way, is for states to offer lotteries, where if people have the vaccine by a certain cutoff point, they're entered into a cash prize lottery. So, for example, as an Oregonian, they are offering a prize of $1 million to one person who got the vaccine, one person older than 18 who got the vaccine before, I think, the 7th, like June 7th. And then they're also offering a $10,000 prize to one person in each of Oregon's counties that got the vaccine before the 7th. And then if you're under 18, there's like a scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all based on some other state that tried this, and then their vaccine numbers like skyrocketed. So all it takes is the fake possibility of winning money, because the
Well, hold
odds are
on.
ridiculous.
It's a real possibility,
Yeah. Okay, sure.
right? I mean, it's not a scam.
This is,
it's not a fake possibility.
This is where we quote Ritsuko, and we're like, it's a 0.00009% chance.
Yeah, but then you can directly turn around and quote Misato saying, well, it's not zero.
Fair enough.
You're saying there's a chance.
Yeah. So sorry, I apologize. You guys will get it together. You're going to host the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, every day more protesters join the protest group of people who do not want the Olympics here. And
Even Asahi Shimbun, just the Asahi newspaper, did an editorial being like, hey, we should cancel these.
I feel like that's like not a small matter. Like because they're the official newspaper partner of the Olympics.
Oh, dang.
Like they're like the top one. They're like the official sponsor of the Olympics. And if they themselves are like, hey guys, you shouldn't be doing this. I feel like in Japan, I think that's like a strong message. But
that is
our fearless leader, Suga, is just like, fuck it, I don't care. I'm not going to be the prime minister, and like counting down here to about 5 more months. So I'm doing whatever the, conservative party wants me to do. I'm doing that, and then I'm going to get the fuck out.
Oh man.
I think that's what he's up to.
Yeah. I've checked out. I know that the pressure is mounting to cancel it, and I think they should, but I also know that like the Olympic Committee has like some crazy strong stranglehold on pushing it forward. And also cities don't like hosting the Olympics anymore. So it's going to be harder and harder for these things to happen because they just cost too much money. And from my understanding, the Olympic Committee, also, this is now an Olympics podcast. The Olympic Committee is like kind of like your like super diva rock star that has like a giant rider on contracts where it's like, we can only have green M&Ms. There has to be 3 different types of bottled water. One of them needs to be Voss. I need a peeled banana, cut by a virgin, like that type of stuff. And the Olympic Committee is just like that, where they're like, your city has to be like this. You have to spend this much money. You have to have all these things for us. And what do we bring? Tourism, apparently, and the prestige of having to like have thousands, if not millions, of people in your city for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. If you know anything about like, I don't know, FIFA and F1, it's the same story again. Just like, there's all that what you just said, but I think like the driving factor is like corruption and kickbacks.
Yeah.
That's what gets you the Olympics. And so like if you're already in that corrupt like soup of all this going down, then it's really like not an option to cancel if you're the one who has to hold the bag if it gets canceled.
Yeah.
So
I just realized, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say they're fighting hard to like not have it be canceled because the people who are invested in it, who are not the investors, I guess, like want to see their returns that they were promised.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just realized we're like backing into a conversation about Gundam I want to have later on. So let's time out.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
And let me answer. I'll go back to the topic at hand. The only anime that I've really watched with any like I'm current with this is your favorite, My Hero Academia. That's the one thing I can fit in because it's kind of mindless. It's not really mindless, but it's like a nice shonen break.
Yeah. I used to have strong opinions about like people watching bad anime and like why would you waste your time about this? But I've realized something over the past couple of years. Like I don't care.
Oh, dang.
People can do whatever they want. I don't care. Like watch your bad anime.
Growth.
Nice. Good for you, dude. I've gone opposite of elitism in my anime fandom.
Perfect.
Just like, dude, watch whatever you want. I don't care.
This is growth.
Yeah.
It's amazing. What have you been watching?
So to go along with my newfound statement of non-judgment, my position of non-judgment toward watching whatever you want, I decided, really at random. If listeners of the podcast will know that my decisions to watch stuff recently have been like wildly unpredictable. And I think we must have touched on this. I started watching Naruto.
Nice.
Good old classic Naruto. I can't remember if I mentioned this on the last episode or not.
I think we did briefly talk about the fact that you had started Naruto.
Yeah, so I started Naruto last time. That was like, what, 2 months ago? 3 months ago? 2 months ago?
Yesterday.
That was, well, we
It was a
cannot,
while
no,
ago.
we cannot
Yeah,
bullshit
people
our
know.
listeners that hard because the last episode wasn't even released yesterday. But anyway, so probably wasn't that far into it when we recorded last. And I am happy to say that I finished all of Naruto and all of Naruto Shippuden. And I'm 100
Dang.
episodes into Boruto right now.
Holy crap.
Now, with the caveat of I did follow a filler guide and skipped filler episodes of Naruto and Naruto Shippuden. So
That's what you have to do.
So I didn't, but I can't, I mean, so then there's like, a performance enhancing asterisk next to my record of I didn't actually watch all of Naruto. I only watched
Fair.
the good parts.
Yeah. And that's understandable. I looked at that filler guide and I was like, oh wow, there's just whole tracks of like almost entire seasons, or generally half of seasons where it's like, this is non-manga canon.
Yeah, there's like 12
I
episodes
would do the exact same thing.
of just like nonsense. Where I can imagine as a watcher of it when it was coming out, you're just like pissed off. You're just like, what? My whole spring now
Yeah.
is I'm not gonna watch Naruto because it's just like the cliffhanger of the last season was like, Naruto's about to get killed by this really important bad guy. And then like the next episode is like, let's flash back to a time when they were like chasing some cats around the village for 6 episodes. I'm like, what? No. I don't care about that. I want to go back to the big bad fight where like the world hangs in the balance. Like that's what I was invested in.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's like, and I know that we want to do like a whole episode on Naruto. And I have started reading it
Nice.
in the background. But I am curious, like, are you surprised by how much you enjoyed it? Or did you enjoy it, I guess is a good question. And then
Yeah.
what's it been like watching it?
Good. It's been great because I think the last thing I watched, I don't even remember now. I've been kind of watching some nostalgic old stuff. I think I watched Rurouni Kenshin right before that.
Mm-hmm.
And it like got me in this mood of like, oh yeah, I remember when I was a wee lad just watching shonen anime and wishing I could like power up and throw a shuriken around. Well, I was like, there's literally nothing stopping me from watching Naruto.
Hey, there's nothing stopping you from running around your house charging up your shurikens.
That's true. That's true. I do
We're
find
adults
myself
now.
like making Naruto references to my wife, which she's like, haha, that's good. I understand that.
And she hasn't left you because of it.
Right.
That's a plus.
So that's a plus. Yeah. I'll just be like, man, I wish I had like the Byakugan right now so I could see through this thing. It'd be really good and helpful. So things like that have come into the vernacular of my daily life.
How frequently do you just go to like coworkers like, believe it?
Okay, I don't do that because I didn't watch the English version of Naruto.
Good point. Fair enough.
So there's that. I don't say like weird quirks from the anime. I just like think of possible solutions from like, man, if I had chakra, this would be much easier kind of things.
I could just walk over this wall.
Yeah, exactly. But it's been good. The story of Naruto is great. There's some shaky parts because it's a very long story.
Yeah.
So the middle is kind of
700 episodes.
yeah, right, exactly. So there's some parts where I'm like, I don't know about this. And there's some writing quirks where I'm like, seems like he wrote himself into a corner on this one and there's some major Deus Ex Machina to get him out of it. But otherwise, like, the core ideas of the story are solid, and there are some good twists that I did not expect. That I'm like, oh, that was a good twist. So it was really good, and Boruto is shaping up to be also good.
Yeah.
Not as good, but good.
I'm a big fan, and we're gonna talk about this in Gundam, but I'm a really big fan of narratives that explore kind of the consequences of vanquishing the big bad or succeeding in your quest, and then what is life after that. I think as I get older, I'm like, yeah, now that I passed all the milestones, I graduated high school, I graduated college, I got a job, I'm a working adult. What does that mean to succeed? And then, like, what is the rest of your life after you achieve that goal that you're set up to accomplish?
Well, I didn't want to think about that during this podcast.
Sorry.
Because that is the question. Maybe that's like part of the reason why I'm having this before midlife crisis of watching like all these old shows that I used to love when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, I think about these kind of things all the time. We're like, what do I do now? I did all the prep stuff, and now I'm doing the life.
Right.
But now what comes next?
Exactly. But that's what I think is really cool about Boruto is that's exactly what it is. It's like, okay, this is the next generation, and there's still these adults around, so we at least get some insight into what's going on with them.
Yeah, but I don't like the ultimate conclusion where it's like we have to leave it up to the future, and I just like wait. Like if I'm Naruto, I'm just like, well, I was the most badass, but now like it's all up to Boruto because I'm not important anymore, even though I'm like literally only like 35 years old. What?
Well, that's like ancient in an anime.
In an anime, right? I know.
I was. We'll talk about this in a minute, but I was like looking up characters in one of the Gundam series we're going to talk about, and like somebody that I always assume was like 50 is 39. And I was just like, oh my god.
Well, yeah, like Bright, Bright Noah, good old 19-year-old Bright. Where I'm like, oh, I thought he was like 25.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I think like back to Naruto, Kakashi is only like 28.
Yeah.
In his like when he's the mentor of Naruto and everybody. So I always thought he was like this grizzled veteran, but he's like just like in his late 20s. I will say in Boruto, it's nice to meet Kono Hamaru, that little annoying kid, you know, from Naruto, who like pesters Naruto, and
with the scarf, right?
Yeah, with the scarf. He's like the Kakashi of this era.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so he's the team leader of Boruto and his friends. So
damn, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
I didn't make it that far into Boruto, I think. I read like maybe the first chapter.
Yeah, it progresses like in a similar way to Naruto. Like I haven't gotten to any time skips yet, but there will be time skips, and like it's like Naruto where like it's a slow burn story over time of him like learning lessons and becoming mature. So it's good. It's
nice.
It's good. It's telling the same story as Naruto basically, and like teaching these lessons to kids who are watching the show. So that's good. I wanted to just make a quick. So basically, that's all I've been watching, aside from Oishimbo on occasion.
Right.
And I want to say though that last night on TV was an episode of the newest Pokemon.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we were watching that, and first of all, I'm so surprised how Pokemon can still be like as popular as when we were kids for the current kids. Like, how is that possible?
It never goes away.
It never goes away, and it's just as like kids are just like, yeah, Pokemon. And I'm like, what? How is that? It's just like exactly. It's literally like Mickey Mouse. Like it's just as popular and the same exact popularity.
Absolutely.
And the second point I want to make is in this episode that I didn't watch the whole episode. We just flipped to it and it was on. Ash and Gary, BFFs, like smiling and laughing and hanging out and having a great old time together. And I was like, "What's this?"
Suspect.
Like what? Like who? I was like, "Who is this guy?" First of all, because he looks like he looks like Gary, but he can't be because he's like not being a dick and he's like cooperating with everybody and helping out. And nope, it was. And that's just
weird
how they are now. So I guess the messaging has changed since our time about what a rival should be. I guess you're supposed to cooperate with your rival now and just like be on great terms and not be trying to strive to beat them. I don't know.
Right. It's really interesting and I feel bad. Like if you play Pokemon Sword and Shield, your rival in that game is essentially your best friend, and he's just worse than you. Like you go through all the same stuff, and he's like constantly kind of crapped on by the game, even though he's the younger brother of like the league champion, and he's totally. Were he not like handicapped intentionally by the narrative of the game, he would just be as good as you, if not better. And it's like, oh, why can't we just have like somebody who gets there first and is proficient and doesn't have to like be kicked around?
Yeah. That's like the classic rival. Maybe like everyone's just sick of that like archetype and stereotype in a show.
I can see that.
Because like, what got me thinking about this was in Naruto, like Sasuke is that kind of character to Naruto, right? And so he has like a rival that he's trying to be like. Boruto also doesn't have that, which is a modern show.
Oh.
There's no big strong guy that he's trying to be like. He's obviously trying to like measure up to his dad Naruto, but that's it. Like there's no like peer that's his rival.
Wow, that's crazy.
So I'm just like, is that like not a thing anymore? I don't know. I don't watch new kid anime, so I don't really know. But
in My Hero Academia, which is like I'm highlighting it because it's the most popular anime right now. The main character Deku does have a kind of rival, Bakugo, but at a certain point in the story, I mean, they're still rivals and competitive. And there is general rivalry throughout the world of My Hero Academia because, like, heroes are ranked. But there is a certain point where Deku and Bakugo just have it out. And then afterwards, there's kind of like a mutual understanding about their drive to be successful in different ways. So I think as a whole, there is this kind of maturation of people being like, oh, we don't have to measure our success compared to someone else. We can be successful in our own way. But it does kind of like, then there's not like that kind of stone to sharpen yourself against.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting like that.
I feel like it's a super cop-out bullshit thing. That like this modern woke culture has spawned.
Okay.
No,
okay,
not,
Grandpa.
Not that strong. I don't feel that strongly about it, but it's kind of like, I feel like it is like a little bit of a cop-out. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you're just like, well, I can't win, so I'm just going to like do something else. Like, what?
Yeah.
No, that's dumb.
Yeah, and I think that like in the Deku versus Bakugo thing, it's kind of a Bakugo understands the limits of Deku's abilities. So
what kind of show in anime has limits to abilities? What do you
I just mean like you really have to understand. I don't want to spoil My Hero for somebody who hasn't watched it, but like Deku as a character is developing his hero trait in a different way than everyone else because he doesn't come by it naturally.
Okay.
So like he's not at 100% yet, and Bakugo technically isn't either because he's still learning how to use his quirk, but he has access to the full potential of it. And there's just different. It's complicated, but like they don't go as hard as rivals. Like there's not as much like putting each other down. Like Bakugo will make fun of Deku, and Bakugo was like the school bully to Deku, but it like mellows out over time and they come to an understanding. So it's kind of like what's being put forward and modeled for kids is like, yeah, you might have been shitty in the past, but you guys can work to resolve your differences. And then they reserve like the real, not necessarily rivalry, but competition for the antagonist. Like, okay, we'll just focus all this on the bad guy. But it's interesting to hear that there's no like Sasuke for Bolt. Boruto.
Boron. Yeah, dumb name. I don't like it.
Yeah.
But whatever. I'm used to hearing it so much now that I'm like, whatever, fine.
Yeah.
But I accidentally keep calling him Naruto because it's just freaking Naruto.
Yeah.
So it's just the same.
I found I have for some reason a Naruto headband that I think maybe we were like cleaning up after some panel and it was like left on the table, and so I just was like, oh, take this and see if I can find who it belongs to.
No, you're gonna take this and put it on when no one's around, and
I'm wearing it right now.
Yeah, I knew it.
I wear it whenever I record.
I will say that a change in the times that I can mark with the Japanese youth, based only on Boruto and not because I know any youths, is that everyone likes burgers now, and they think ramen is dumb and antiquated.
What? These kids.
All the kids in
they know
Boruto,
how good they've got it.
They don't. They go around, or they always hang out at the burger shop and eat burgers all the time. And there's an episode where Naruto like wants to bond with Boruto, so they're like, "Do you want to go get something to eat?" And he's like, "Whatever, fine." So Naruto takes him to the ramen stand, the ramen stand, which is now evolved into like a ramen chain around all of the village.
Yeah.
But he goes there and he's like, "Yeah, I used to come here all the time." And Boruto's just like, "What? Like, what kind of food is this? Like, what? Why would you want to eat this? Like, what are you, 90 years old?"
Listen, kid.
Naruto's just like, "God damn it, I hate you so much." But then Boruto eats it and it's just like super tsundere about it. Like,
nice.
It's not that good, but like, it wasn't terrible.
Of course. Should we dive into the main course?
Yeah. So anyway, enough of that. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go into
Hold on. I need to get set up. 1 second.
Oh, okay.
If we're going to talk about Gundam, I need to be prepared. Okay, now we can do this. Because I've had some revelations and seen some shit.
Wow. I guess we're not joking around anymore.
No, we are not. Because this is part 3 of our discussion on Gundam.
All right. Well, what?
So
what have you seen?
Yeah. In just as a quick recap for listeners, in case they didn't have the stomachs to get through our, I think, pushing 4 hours of past Gundam content, Laven and I went on a journey to watch everything that's kind of canon in the Universal Century timeline for the Gundam franchise. And, we talked about the original Gundam, the Gundam The Origin, which tells the story before the Gundam series. We talked about Zeta Gundam, which is kind of the next big installment in the franchise. And then I believe we discussed Double Zeta. You told me a bit about Double Zeta.
Yeah, a little bit. It's kind of the dark, the black sheep of Gundam, but yes, I think we briefly talked about the overall plot points of it.
Yeah. And so we've covered these big sweeping events, and Char's counterattack, kind of one of the end points for the Gundam UC timeline. And there's two big missing pieces of it. And so what we're going to talk about today is Mobile Suit Gundam 0083 Stardust Memories and Gundam Unicorn.
Yay.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. I wanted to hear, when I was editing the other episodes, I'm just like, I really wish we talked about those other two. But now we can. So great.
Yeah. And we're going to do this in order. Like, I have some big revelations to make in this episode. But I think we should talk about 0083 first, because it comes first, and it comes first in the timeline. And Gundam Unicorn is really currently the capstone on the UC timeline.
Yeah. As soon as Hathaway Flash comes out.
Oh, I'm excited.
Well, it keeps getting delayed, so maybe it'll never come out.
So, Mobile Suit Gundam 0083 Stardust Memories is an OVA, an only video animation Gundam series that was released in 1991 through 1992. It was May 91 to September of 92, which makes it older than us just by a hair.
Yep.
But it's like kind of it's us. It's kind of an interesting observation.
Yeah. It's getting old. I don't, I obviously don't believe in astrology, but there's something magical about these kind of this animation period and shows from the, like, around the time we were born. They're my absolute favorite.
Yeah.
And I don't know why,
agree
but
with
they're
you
just
there.
like the best.
Yeah.
So something about being born in this era, like, makes us gravitate toward all these shows that we wouldn't have been able to see because we were literally infants. But we can watch them now, and you're like, why is it so good at this time?
It just resonates with us.
Yeah.
So we talked about, Mobile Suit Gundam takes place in the Universal Century 0079. And Zeta Gundam takes place, I believe, starting right around 0084.
87.
87. Okay, so it takes place 4 years after 0083. And a kind of a theme of what we're talking about today is there were these big chunks of important things that were done in kind of the quote-unquote original run of Gundam, done under the series creator Tomino. And then there's also some gaps, some like really important gaps in the story, specifically in the case of the original Gundam run to Zeta Gundam. There's kind of this really big shift where the Federation goes from being just kind of like neutral, not necessarily neutral, but like, trying to think of the right word. They're very secure in their power, so they don't want anything to change, which means, for good or bad, they don't want disruption. And then the Zeon forces come in and they disrupt the power balance, and that triggers the 1 year war. And so the Federation is kind of like neutral, on a back foot in that time. And then in Zeta Gundam, they're the bad guys. They're like, it's like Hogan's Heroes, like, are we the bad guys? Like, yes. But the shift is like, what happened? And it's kind of like off camera. We know, okay, something happened, and the Federation decided to create the Titans to hunt down Zeon forces, and now they're like way too aggressive. They're killing colonies. They're doing all this bad stuff, and like they've gone off the rails. But what caused that? And that's what Gundam 0083 is about, is like the situation that set up the kind of bad forces within the Federation, or the extra bad forces in the Federation, to really grab the reins and take over.
Right.
And so we got this series. It's a 13 episode OVA. It started out, the first 7 are directed by someone named Mitsuko Kase, who I couldn't really find other works they did. They've done other directorial and storyboard works, and they've done some other Gundam stuff. They worked on 08MS Team, so they're kind of in the Gundam club. And then the latter half, episode 8 through 13, is directed by Takashi Imanishi. And he also directed a lot of the Origins, which I think is important here, because that's another Gundam series that deals with the history and how things are triggered or how things are started. What are your thoughts? Well, I guess we should summarize the story.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. And you're gonna have to help me fill in some stuff that I'm gonna kind of like.
Yeah, no problem. But
hand wave, yada yada. But essentially, there is a group of Mobile Suit pilots, Federation pilots that are training in Australia, and their base receives like a ship comes in because they're going to do some weapons testing for this new set of Gundams, the GPO, the GP01 and the GP02A. And what is kind of weird about this is that the GP02A is set up to fire a nuclear warhead, which is strictly forbidden under the Antarctica Treaty.
Yep.
Yeah. And so Anaheim sends these new prototype Gundams to Australia for testing, and when they're there, and conveniently after the GPO-2A has been loaded with a nuclear warhead, some remnants of the Zeon forces, led by this guy named Gato, sneak onto the base, take the GPO-2A, and escape. And so the story of 0083 is the pursuit of Gato and the GPO-2A by a kind of a ragtag group of Mobile Suit pilots commissioned to take the ship that... What was that?
Commissioned hastily.
Yeah, hastily. Like, extremely hastily. To chase after Gato while he's on Earth, and then when he finally launches into space, to pursue him and track him down and try and get the nuclear warhead back, because the Federation's not supposed to be messing with nukes, and now some rebel Zeon forces have it.
Yeah.
And so, there's some great characters in 0083. The main character is Ko Ibaraki, who is a young kind of pilot trainee. Uraki, sorry. Yeah. I think he's an ensign at the start. Then, there's his commanding officer, South Burning.
Yeah.
who is the person I alluded to earlier, who has the appearance sincerely of like a 50-year-old man, and it turns out he's just the ripe old age of 39.
Yeah. Well, he seems some shit, dude. Like, I mean,
True.
He's old enough to be like in the prime during the 1 Year War.
Yeah.
So
very true.
So like, I don't know, I probably aged him like 10 years in a single year.
Ko's kind of wingman, best friend is a guy. He has two first names, or I guess he has a first name and a last name, but they're both first names. He's is it Chuck Keith?
Yeah, Chuck Keith.
Yeah, Chuck Keith.
The best name ever. He is.
They couldn't pick.
He's the guy. He is Goose for all intents and purposes.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. We'll definitely talk about that in a second.
Yeah, he is the most fighter pilot name possible. Chuck Keith.
Yeah.
American badass.
Chuck Keith. And then, so with Anaheim delivering the, I should probably explain for the audience, Anaheim Electronics is one of the major manufacturers of weapons in the Federation and for Zeon forces. They play both sides. They're a weapons dealer or an arms dealer. And so they send Nina Purpleton with the GPO-1 and GPO-2A because she's kind of like their chief system engineer. And so then she's there as well, and she helps pursue them. There's a bunch of great other characters. There's these three guys that are really, I mean, I think in retrospect, I can look at them and be like, so they're or they're mobile suit pilots, and they really don't like Ko, and they're kind of rowdy, but they're also like soldiers that probably survived the 1 year war, and lost people. And so they're kind of, messed up. There's, mechanics and stuff. There's a whole crew because it's a Gundam show. You get to know some, you don't get to know others. And then kind of on the opposite side, you have Gato, who was a soldier, the nightmare of Solomon during the 1 year war. But he, right near the end, before one of the major climactic battles in the 1 year war, he escapes to be kind of like to survive that fight, to fight again another day, and then he reemerges in this to bring glory back to the Zeon forces. So you alluded to Chuck Keith being the goose of 0083. You made a really cool observation to me when I was watching this about kind of what movie is this like?
This is Top Gun. This is anime Top Gun with Gundams. Top Gundam, if you will.
Top Gundam.
It's 120% just like these directors just watched Top Gun and they're like, we're doing that. We're doing that here now with Gundams. Because the soundtrack, it's just like the most Kenny Loggins rip-off music possible, like just guitar solos and like 80s synth and just like cool ass dog fighting and like all this kind of thing. It's just Top Gun. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the best way to describe 0083.
Like, especially like you alluded to those three pilots who come.
Yeah.
They're like just the most stereotypical like US Navy pilots from the 80s. They're just like kind of degenerate guys who are super jockey and like they all have camaraderie with each other because they fought. They're like Vietnam veterans who are now like instructors at a Top Gun school. Like that's their vibe.
Yeah.
Like they're really
totally.
like they're just like macho guys who are like sexist and strong, and they like joke with each other, and that's their thing. You're just like a stereotype, walking, talking stereotype of fighter pilots, basically.
Yeah, and I have to say, a lot of, if you look at Gundam stuff, you'll start to hear people joke about like Gundam names, which tend to be absolutely ridiculous. And so this group of three pilots, there's Monsha and Chap Adel, and then the third guy, his name is Alpha A Bates, which in Japanese is Arufa A Beto. So his name is Alphabet.
Yeah. What a good.
Oh, poor guy.
It's fine. Alpha A Bates does sound pretty awesome, though. So
it's pretty good. It's a good name. It's a good name.
They're all awesome. All the names in this, specifically this one, are great because they're like, let's do regular Gundam names, but with the 80s action movie twist. And it's very cool.
I don't want to give too much away about the plot because I really like the story in 0083. I think the key thing to know about it and how it factors into the Gundam timeline is that, Zeon forces they escape with a nuclear weapon and they use it to do some real damage. And they also attempt a colony drop in the process. Are they successful with the colony drop? They stop it.
They do. Well, who is they? It is stopped.
Stuff happens. It is stopped. Yes. And so like Zeon is scary in this because the Federation thinks, oh, we've won, we're victorious, we've mopped this all up. And then just a rebel group, not even a large group of Zeon forces, causes some serious damage.
The Delas fleet. They're pretty.
Yeah,
they are a fleet. It's not. It's not a tiny group.
Yeah, but it's not the whole Xeon army.
No.
Like, because they've been decimated. But yeah. Yeah, I guess it is an important thing to point out that Gato is not in charge of. He's not like the actual leader of the forces. Yeah, he serves under Delaz.
Who Delaz looks like, if you've ever watched, I don't know, a U-boat movie, he's like every U-boat captain. That's what he looks like.
Yeah.
But he's actually a good person, I feel like.
Yeah, so this is where we're going to start seeing a theme. Because throughout Gundam 0083, this is where it really starts to blur the lines in terms of what is right, what is wrong, who is actually on the side of good, who is, bad. And like we talked about this in our first 2 episodes about Gundam, but like, as a kid, I would want to be like, oh, there's a right side and a wrong side to this, and like the Federation clearly, just because of how they dress, and they're the protagonists of these shows, so what they're saying is they're the good guys. But it really gets more nuanced than that, and it's like, well, you have to look at what these soldiers are fighting for and what their motivations are, and it gets really hazy in 0083 because it turns out the plot isn't as simple as we've stolen a nuclear weapon and we're going to use it. Like, there's backstabbing and double crossing, and the Federation doesn't have their hands clean in this effort. And were they allowed to steal the Gundam, or should it have ever been sent there, and stuff like that. It gets really murky,
right?
And like when you hear kind of the Delaz's motivation, and there's another major Xeon player, Shima, who kind of is a leader of another group of former Xeon, and what she's doing with Anaheim and what she's doing with the Federation. There's just a lot going on where it's like, oh man, no one's clean in this. But like, still, we get so much more exposure to the day-to-day soldiers and how they're being played by the people in charge, the commanders and the rulers of these forces. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like their destiny isn't their own, and they're kind of being used to a large extent. And a big
go on.
I was going to say, in a big piece of the kind of latter half of 0083 is the Albion, which is the ship that Ko and the Federation forces are on that's pursuing Gato and the GPO-2A. Like, they go rogue because they kind of disobey orders to go and get a new Gundam to finish the job. And so it's like, in order to do the right thing, they have to disobey their orders and, go with their own.
Yeah. I feel like the only people who... I feel like the Xeon remnants do know what's going on. Like, they aren't being really used. I feel like Delaz is, like, totally open with their plan to them. So they're just like, yeah, we trust you, boss. We're in. Mm-hmm. It's only Shima who, like, kind of fucks it up, but the people directly under Delaz are like, I don't know. I didn't really find any fault with them. They know what the stakes are. They know what they're doing. They're kind of like, I don't know, eco-terrorists, essentially.
Yeah.
They're like, well, we're going to steal the nuke and we're going to expose the nuke to everyone. Mm-hmm. And like, it kind of sucks that we have to use it, but like, that's Shogunai.
Right. Yeah. And they're like, I think there's so many really fascinating parallels between these two Gundam entries and Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of like the loyalty of soldiers. And you know, what are they ultimately meant to serve, or who are they meant to serve, and what do they owe to their nation versus their comrades. There's a lot of like bonding in it. And
wow, this like also is a large, like super big theme in Naruto.
oh yeah.
Toward the end, like it gets like just like this.
Interesting.
Like,
I can't
what
wait
does
to
it
have
mean to
that
be a
conversation.
shinobi? Like, who are you actually protecting? Like they
Whoa.
get into that territory.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so it's all full circle here.
And so I think people should definitely watch 0083. I think it absolutely holds up, being a 30-year-old series at this point.
Yeah,
The animation is phenomenal.
it is really good.
The mech designs were done by Hajime Katoki and Shoji Kawamori. And Kawamori worked on Macross, which you can kind of see a little bit in the design work. The lines are a little curvier.
Yeah, you can always tell when it's Kawamori. His
Yeah.
stuff is like 80s mech. If
Yep.
it's an 80s mech, it looks like that.
Yeah. I imagine if folks might not know the name GPO2A, but I guarantee if you've seen Gundam stuff, you've definitely seen this big
It's
boy.
the big boy Gundam.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah. Carries a massive shield, a giant bazooka that fires a tiny nuclear warhead.
Yeah. It's like the Davy Crockett.
It is. I was just about to say that. There's another similarity between 0083 and Snake Eater.
It's almost as if like all this Japanese media has some kind of thing about nuclear technology. They have something to
I
say
wonder what
about
that's
it.
about.
Yeah.
It's a very good point.
But yeah, it's a good show. It's my favorite Gundam, probably. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's something I like to say. It's it's in there in my top. I don't know if it's actually technically better than Zeta. I mean, no, it's not.
Yeah.
But the style, how it's stylized, is my top number one favorite. I love this like cheesy ass fighter pilot thing, like Top Gun. So I love it. It's
Yeah.
just great.
Yeah, the action is phenomenal. Some really great fights in it and throughout, both on the ground and in space. It's more contained than the original Gundam series or something like Zeta because it's short. It's not too short. It's 13 episodes, but it was an OVA, so it's like a little bit more methodically paced, and there's some fantastic episodes. I think an episode I think about all the time is when Gato is trying to escape Earth with the GPO-2A, so he seeks out a remnant group of Xeon forces who have been hiding in a diamond mine.
Yeah.
To launch his shuttle, and like these soldiers know that an advanced, like a superior fighting force is heading their way, but they sacrifice themselves to make sure that their comrade can escape and kind of keep the fight going.
Everything for the cause.
It's so good.
Yeah. I really love the sequence where, or like the small story arc where the amputee guy is in
Kelly.
He's in the space colony, and he's like a junk
Yeah.
dealer. And he's like, he wants to rejoin the fight, so he's fixing his mech single-handedly, his mobile armor,
Yeah.
to be able to be piloted by one hand. And he like helps the main character, and they're like, even though we're on different sides, like the fight isn't right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty
And
cool.
they recognize in each other like, oh, we're soldiers,
Yeah.
but we want to get this job done, and we're going to meet on the battlefield, and one of us is going to walk away.
Yeah, it's like the mutual admiration for like, you have like whatever your set of ideals are, like your integrity and character like is allowing you to fight for those things. And that's like where the respect is. Like you're doing what you have to do for your thing you believe in. And like
Yeah.
you can't fault someone for that, even though it's the thing I believe in, but I'm gonna fight for mine. So whoever's better is gonna get their thing they want.
So good.
Yeah.
And he pilots a really cool mobile armor.
He does. His
Yeah.
story is really sad, but
Yeah, it really is.
what can you do?
It's all sad. Like,
Gundam is just sadness.
Gundam is sad. It really is. I've come to realize that following anything set, I mean, even stuff like in the Origin set before the 1 Year War, but anything set after the 1 Year War is just sad. Like, and I feel like it's this commentary on you can't have people that live through a major conflict like a world war and have them be okay. They're not going to be okay.
Yeah.
Which is a great segue to the other piece in the Gundam kind of canon. So Gundam 0083 bridges what happens in Gundam to the changes in Zeta. And that's a really key story moment in the UC timeline. And then at the end of the current UC timeline, we have this series called Gundam Unicorn, or technically it's Gundam UC, and then the way you're supposed to pronounce UC is Unicorn. It's a series. Boy, I want to say it's an 8-episode series.
Is it 8? 6 plus 2. So yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I think it's an 8-episode series. It's all directed by Kazuhiro Furuhashi, who you will recognize because he directed the Samurai X OVAs, and he actually directed a lot of Rurouni Kenshin.
Nice.
And then I also want to note that he was the director for the anime adaptation of Get Backers.
I used to have a DVD 1 of, back in 2002. When you could to watch a 26-episode series, you buy, double the amount of DVDs you had to actually buy.
Yeah. So Gundam Unicorn is adapted from a novel series by an author by the name of Harutoshi Fukui. I didn't really recognize anything else he did, but I think I definitely wanted to highlight that they're adaptations from novels because each episode is like a mini movie. They're an hour plus in length and cover a lot of content.
This is my favorite format for Gundam, I think.
Yeah.
It's
100%.
so good.
Yeah, I think all Gundam should be long form. Like, give them as much time as they want.
Yeah, I agree.
So Gundam Unicorn was released between March of 2010 and June of 2014. There's a lot of love and care and money put into every episode of this series. And like we mentioned, they're long episodes. So they were released at a kind of a stretch. There was a lot of time between each episode.
Right.
And man alive, is this show beautiful.
I know.
It's so pretty.
I thought that back when I watched the first one, when did the first one come out?
2010.
2010. I remember back in like my high school times watching this, like, oh, this show is really good.
Yeah.
But then, as you said, it took so long to come out between episodes. I didn't finish it until this year. Like right before we were wrapping up our original watch session for all this stuff.
Yeah.
I just lost track of when the episodes were coming out. So I had only watched the first couple. And then I'm like, oh yeah, Unicorn's already out and done. I should just watch it. And yeah. It's and I think that they keep the consistency between the animation. Like even though it's like 8 years between like the first and the last episode, the animation consistency is like very good between all the years.
And it's impressive. I mean, they keep the same crew through all those years. And it's just solid. Like, there is use of 3D and CG, which we aren't always the biggest fans of, but it's pretty well integrated.
Yeah, I would say I'm always not a fan of it. But actually, yeah, you're right. In Unicorn specifically, it does look good enough. Like it passes my test where I'm like, all right, it's CG, but it doesn't look so jarring and weird and out of place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not disruptive.
And-
And like we mentioned, or I guess maybe we didn't mention this, but they share Gundam Unicorn and Gundam 0083 share a mechanical designer with Hajime Katoki. And so solid mech designs throughout. You see a lot of classic mobile suits, and you see some new mobile suits that look awesome.
Very like
imagine it-
Zeta and Double Zeta inspired designs.
Absolutely. And you know, the principal or the primary Gundam Unicorn, everyone's probably familiar with because for a long time it was the Gundam statue in Japan.
It still is the Gundam
that
statue.
Oh, it still is? Didn't they replace it with the RX-78?
No, that's you got it backwards. They replaced the RX-78 with the unicorn.
What about the new one that moves?
That's the unicorn because it turns into unicorn mode.
No, there's a new one. There's a new one.
Oh no, that's not
That's like
replaced.
in a hangar?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, is that a different spot?
That's in a different spot. That's in Yokohama.
Oh, okay. Okay, my confusion. Yeah, so you can actually see a life-size version of this that transformed in Japan.
Yeah. I still haven't gone yet, but it's on my list.
Yeah. It's this kind of crazy all-white design, but then when it transforms, it panels like separate and it glows red, or different colors depending on what's going on.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry. And Gundam Unicorn has a crazy plot,
It does.
but it's also, it just works.
Yeah, that's the best way to say it. That's what I thought too. I was like, I really hope this stupid box is not something stupid. But it wasn't.
So, yeah, set the stage. There's, Gundam Unicorn opens in space at a space colony. We meet these kids who are part of a training program in the Federation. The main character is
well, no, it's not
Yeah.
the Federation, right? It's an Anaheim Electronics
oh, is it like a trade school?
trade school? Yeah.
That makes sense. So they're kids because it's Gundam. They're always going to be kids. And the kid that kind of stands out is this guy named Benarj Lynx.
Gundam name.
Yeah, super Gundam name. And he sees this girl fall through the sky, and so he jumps into action and rescues her. And this girl says her name is Audrey Burns.
Gundam name.
And that kind of kicks off the whole craziness of the show, because it turns out that Benarj is actually the son of someone associated with this kind of like clandestine organization that's building the Unicorn Gundam. And so he's actually the one that's been kind of set up to pilot it. And it also turns out that Audrey Burns is Minerva Zabi, the heir to the Principality of Zeon and the Zabi family.
Oh, her.
So, yeah. Oh, her. Dolza's daughter.
Yeah.
I will die for her. And what Unicorn becomes is this exploration of how did the space colonies come to be? How did the Federation come to be? What rights to self-governance do space noids have? And, you know, what is the scarred history that created this world? And so through the course of the story and in the first episode or two, you learn that the Unicorn Gundam contains this thing called the Laplace's box. And
I'm with you so far.
Supposedly, whatever is in it could threaten the very existence of the Federation. And to open the box, they have to. The Unicorn Gundam responds to Benarj, who's like the key, he's not really the key because they're looking for the key. It's confusing.
Yeah.
But
He's one of the keys.
but yeah, Benarj is the pilot that can get the Unicorn Gundam to work. The Unicorn Gundam has this the La Plus system that locks anybody else out. It's also equipped with psychoframe technology, which for those who remember Char's counterattack, that was something that Char was experimenting with, and he gave to Amuro, but Amuro put into the new Gundam. So it's like super deep Gundam lore.
That's that blood technology that was built on the backs of crippling the minds of many young people.
Yeah. So it's great. So they have to go on this quest to visit these coordinates that the Unicorn Gundam gives out, and each time they go to a new place, it's like historically significant to the Universal Century. It takes them to the the remains of a space station that was the first Federation's prime minister's like residence. That's what kind of kicks the story off. It takes them to Australia, where the colony was dropped. It takes them to some like famous battle sites from the 1 Year War, all in the quest to find out what's in the Laplace's box. And you know, there's a bunch of characters you meet along the way. There's people on the Federation side. Bright Noah enters the picture eventually to kind of, as kind of, he's still with Lundo Bell, the organization that's formed in Double Zeta and plays a major role in Char's counterattack. You know, there's some Neon Zeon forces led by this guy named Full Frontal, who
Great Gundam
isn't
name.
Char.
Isn't Char, isn't naked. So
Isn't Char, isn't naked, yeah, but is named Full Frontal. There's some like mercenary Zeon forces that show up at the space colony trying to get the Unicorn Gundam. Also capture Audrey Burns because she escaped from them, or she escaped with them. I need to rewatch the first episode. I think she's brought there and then she runs away from them, but she's not necessarily their captive or enemy. But Gundam, like I almost don't want to discuss the plot too much because I think people should watch Gundam Unicorn.
yeah,
It's really good, but I
don't
do
know.
want to talk about.
I want to talk about it though. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I think Gundam Unicorn has my single favorite, like, episode of a Gundam show. And that is the, oh, I need the, it's called The Depths of the Gravity Well. And I think it's episode, like, 4 or 5.
Is that when they go to the where he's eating dinner with the family?
No, different episode. Though when they're on the space station, that's so good though. There's so many good episodes. So my favorite episode, in a sequence of events, Banarj in the Unicorn Gundam rendezvous with this group of Zeon rebels under the command of let me get his name, Subero Zinnerman. He's the captain of this ship called the Garan Sears, which is like they're the group that attacked the space colony in the beginning. And through a turn of events, Banarj hooks up with them and they crash land into Earth. They crash land into like kind of the Middle East. And the episode opens with like this urban city getting attacked, which is a diversion to make everybody not pay attention to the ship crashing. And then they set up this operation where the Gundam has to go to the crash. I guess they land in Australia. They must, because they have to go to the crater where the colony landed when Zeon forces started the 1 Year War.
Yeah, the original
Yeah.
colony drop.
Yeah, the original colony drop. And so in order to create a diversion to let them do that, they kind of call upon all the sleeper cell Zeon forces still on Earth to kind of attack this military base and distract them. And so you have a bunch of soldiers who were never able to put the 1 year war behind them, mobilize and kind of seek their vengeance in a military strike. And it's some of the best Mobile Suit action in the entire Gundam canon.
Yeah, it's a very good sequence.
So good. And it's also so depressing. It's like so sad.
Yeah.
Because like while they're superior pilots, they're in inferior mobile suits.
They're just
and
like
so
basically they raided the local museum of their and they're just like fighting the modern ass military,
cutting edge GMs, yeah. And so while they have the element of surprise, they're winning. But then the second, like one mobile suit takes out a majority of them once the proper pilot gets in it.
Yeah, it's like, what if all these, like, a bunch of grandpas were just like, oh, I still have my F4 from Vietnam. I'm going to just attack the United States military. And, like, the F-22s just, like, blow them out of the sky. They're just like, oh, shit. Guess we can't.
Oh, it's brutal.
But it's a great, like, I don't know, concept. Just like, what if we just try to attack him with all of our old shit? It's like, that's not going to work. But they're heroes for trying.
Yeah. It's so good. So over the course of things, and let's just say, okay, at this point, Gundam Unicorn, animation, excellent. Story, excellent. Characters, very cool. It does justice to both. It really does justice to the Xeon side, and there's still some really good Federation pilots in the Lundo Bell crew. So take all that. We're going to get into some spoiler territory now, because there are some stuff I definitely want to talk about with Gundam Unicorn.
Okay.
So over the course of the show and going through all these different places, ultimately what they discover is that the Lapless box is a original copy, like kind of cast in. It was meant to be like this monument inside the Prime Minister's residence, of the original Federation Constitution or Charter. Mm-hmm. And it states that should the Space Noids ever kind of seek independence, the Federation should let them do it.
Wait.
Right?
I thought it was if... well, it was under the stipulation, like, if a new evolution of
new
humanity
race of people. Yeah.
like is to emerge from this move into space, that we are to let them like govern themselves. Right.
That's the right way to put it. Yes. And listeners from the other two shows will know that a key piece of Gundam is this idea of a new type. Someone who has some extra senses and kind of psychic abilities. It happens to make them kind of, if they want to, be a bit more proficient at piloting mobile suits, but it's really more about emotional connections and these psychic links with other new types.
Yeah, like shared empathy all around the world.
Yeah. Amuro Ray was a new type. Char Onsnable, not a new type?
No, he was a new type.
New type, yeah. Benarge Lynx, new type. And so the whole fight, the philosophical foundation of the Principality of Xeon are the kind of lectures and teachings of Char's father, Xeon Dakum. And he kind of made the argument that new types exist and laid that groundwork. And so the existence of this statement in the foundational law of the Federation saying that, if new types emerge in space, we got to let them kind of determine their own future, directly counters how the Federation has engaged with space.
Right.
And it's interesting because how did you feel about that reveal that it amounts to a piece of paper?
I liked it. I thought it was great because I throughout the course. I mean, it's eight. The series is 8 episodes of 1 hour each, so I'm 8 hours
7,
into this, and I'm just like, if the reveal better be like some thinking thing, and not some like it's the ultimate cannon that can blow up the Earth. And I was just like,
cracking open and it's the Ideon.
Yeah, that's what I didn't want it to be. Like some kind of like stupid, or if it was aliens, I was gonna lose my shit.
The culture.
Yeah, god damn it. No, Gundam doesn't have that. Macross has that.
Yeah.
So when I liked it, I was like, oh, that's cool. So like, it's all because it plays into the whole conspiracy of the Federation being evil, which I already subscribe to. And yeah, and it's not like it's like such an ambiguous thing. Like, well, it has the power to do a lot of things depending on how you use it. Well, like that could be anything, but this is like super specific. Like, it's just information, which you can apply that to any information. It can be used however you want it to enact specific outcomes. So
yeah,
it just depends on what they do with the information.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was like I found it really amusing how much was kind of spent to retrieve it, and the whole thing is like Anaheim Electronics, the VIS organization, Xeon forces, Federation forces, they're all fighting over this, and like the Federation and Anaheim Electronics, they want to bury it. They want to like destroy the Unicorn Gundam, sweep this under the rug, make sure it's never let out because of what they've perpetrated in defense of, or in pursuit of keeping the space colonies
keeping the status quo, essentially.
Yeah, and like keeping control of them, and whereas it's like, God, you guys suck. It's Xeon was right the whole time. They had all of this, like, you know, they actually did have the moral ground to seek. I mean, I think even without this, they had the moral ground to seek independence.
Yeah,
but
of course.
This is like,
you don't need some plaque to tell me what's right and wrong. Like, but you now have like legal precedent.
yeah,
And so that's the point. It's like, just like the knowledge by itself does nothing, but I don't know, like the will of the people in the democratic process couldn't be vastly like changed.
right.
But that's also what they warn against. They're like, well, if you just tell everyone, it could lead to a revolution with more bloodshed. So like, what are you going to do?
Right. And the interesting thing is like Gundam Unicorn was extremely popular. And we got Gundam Narrative, which is technically a sequel to Unicorn, because it's an adaptation of another book in the series. We're getting Hathaway's Flash, which follows the Unicorn timeline. And so we are seeing a continuation of the UC. Like we're seeing a resurgence in, instead of pursuing these like alternate century Gundams where it's like Gundam Seed, Gundam 00, all these things, I think those have finally run their course and we're back to the universal timeline as what the focus for the Gundam project is. And I'm super excited for what that potential future means because it's like, cool, let's see the ramifications of opening this box. Like, give us that. Show us what, like, UC 150 is going to be like. Like, jump us ahead and show us what,
Well,
you know.
well, they kind of shot themselves in the foot by making things like Victory Gundam, because we know what UC 150 is going to be like.
I know.
And it's not good.
They can just retcon it. Like, it's fine.
They could, yeah. We can just like have a split off timeline to be like, well, this is the good timeline actually. Before I decided to like solidify what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And like Reconquista and G technically also happens way in the future.
Technically, yes, that is true.
So
we're not. I'm really torn because like I watched a lot of G-Reco. I'm not gonna try and say its full name. And I remember liking it, but I also don't want to go back and like sit through a Tomino Gundam after.
I remember not liking it. I remember trying really hard to like it,
Yeah.
but it was so crazy. Like the narrative, like I couldn't follow what was happening, and it was so
I had
jumbled.
I had a really hard time following it.
And I was just like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
But yeah. So I like to live with knowledge, like just like the what do you call it? Unicorn Gundam setting is like the present and near future.
Yeah.
And like that's where I can just like live comfortably knowing
Yeah.
everything is like this now.
Absolutely.
Like I don't care about what happens with the Crossbone Vanguard in 100 years. Like don't worry about it. Just gonna.
Yeah. It's fine. They didn't know what they were doing back then. Like they figured it out.
Yeah.
They've gotten real authors to write these stories. Like, yeah. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, I keep thinking about all of the amazing battles in Unicorn. There's the really good one, you know, in the depths of the gravity well. There's some amazing space fights. Like the space fights in the last few episodes are just phenomenal. Like seeing Xeon forces kind of go head to head against the Federation for the first time in years, like first time in decades. It's just so much great mech design, and like certainly, like one of the things you always have to remember is like at a certain level they are trying to sell model kits, but like I would buy all these model kits.
Yeah, right.
Like there's just so much great. It's interesting because at one point in the UC timeline, the Principality of Xeon is making the most advanced mobile suits, and they're making a bunch of different varieties and a bunch of different kinds. Whereas the Federation is just like, we got the GM, we got the Gundam, we got the Gundam ground type, and so there are all these like, they're very like similar, and then so when you get these fights between the Federation, which is all these like uniform mech designs, and then the Xeon forces, which are kind of like ragtag and put together, they're all like eclectic and awesome. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost harder for the Federation to fight them because they don't know how to engage this like claw wielding Zaku and this goof. Like they're just so like out of sorts. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff. I'm glad to hear that you liked Unicorn Gundam. I thought you would after finishing it. I'm like, yeah, you're going to like this because it's a thinking show, which I enjoy.
Oh, yeah. And there's...
Oh, go on.
Well, absolutely in line with what you're saying. Yeah, it really... There's some amazing conversations between Banarj and other soldiers. Like, because he's just some kid who doesn't really know what's going on, and then he encounters a bunch of veterans.
Right. And I like that he's not like the ace pilot who like joins the organization and fights the bad guys. I like that he's just like a kid, and him and Minava Zabi just like go around on their little treasure hunt adventure together. Like that's pretty cool. And the entire purpose of the Gundam being strong is like literally to like have people trying to interfere with their treasure hunt like fuck off, like they make them go away so they can continue their treasure hunt. Like that's like the entire purpose of the Gundam being strong in the first place is like it needs to be like self-reliant or self able to like expel intrusion from opening the box, so that's why it's strong.
Yeah, that's an excellent point because he's not really. I mean, the Unicorn Gundam enhances his ability to use it. So he's been trained on like more maintenance robots. You see him pilot one in the beginning, but you know the Unicorn Gundam, because it only responds to him, augments his ability because it has the Psycho Frame and it has just like autopilot, basically.
Yeah. It just does. It just like gets him to the next point. Like that's its job.
Yeah.
It's cool. I liked it. I like all of it. I enjoy the political intrigue and the confirmation all along that we knew that the Federation was up to no good. Anaheim Electronics is not to be trusted, which we also knew all along.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like the key thing in 0083.
Yeah.
Is that Anaheim is like making new mechs for the Federation while selling new mechs to the Xeon forces.
Yeah. They were doing that since the 1 Year War, though.
Yeah. It's a big thing in Zeta, too.
So you can't trust these, like, defense contractors, is what I've also learned from in real life. So it's pretty much the same.
Or profiteers.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, yeah. So now that you've watched all the important Gundams, what side of the camp do you fall on?
1 second. So we've discussed this a little bit in the first 2 parts, but like I've always been kind of ride or die Federation.
You've been a hardliner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you're basically Basque Ohm over here, saying you're just like do whatever it takes for the Federation to win. And we're all like, dude, what are you talking about?
I've come to see the error in my ways, and I have to say that the Xeon forces are a lot better. Their motivate. You can understand their motivation.
Yeah.
It's impossible to understand what the Federation's motivation is outside of maintaining the status quo, which makes them cops, and cops are terrible.
Right. And their status quo in the first place, they just kind of fell into it.
Yeah.
Because, like, they're just a governing body on the Earth that sanctioned the space colonies.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, now we own them.
Yeah. And there's this great... So, like, my favorite episode, The Depths of the Gravity Well of Gundam Unicorn, there's this amazing conversation between Benarge and the captain of that Xeon force, Zennerman, Benarge is all down on himself because he accidentally killed one of Zennerman's pilots, and he takes Benarge with him to walk through the desert to go get reinforcements, and like they start talking about loss and war and what the hope of the space colonies was. And it's like, yeah, the Earth was just kind of super polluted, overpopulated. It was very hard for everybody to live here. And so what we did is we went to space and we wanted to make a new system. And like a system that would work for us was born there. But the system here wanted to hold on to us and keep us, tied to this old way of doing and thinking. And so that can't exist. Like those things can't, there's going to be conflict if you try to do that. You have to let go. And I'm like, damn, the motivation for the Xeon forces is so much better than the Federation. And like what I should say is like at the top of each group are bad people. Like Gahern Zabi Garen Zabi really gets out there. Like his own father is like, that sounds like Hitler. And he's like, maybe he was right. And so it's like, okay, at the top of the pyramid, maybe these people aren't so great. But the soldiers, like the Xeon soldiers, are fighting for like true independence and like self-determination for themselves. And it's really hard for me to fault them.
Sure. And I mean, like, Xeon Daikum in the first place, like, outlined his ideals and like what Xeon should be. And it was, as it goes in every situation, it was co-opted and grifted by the Zabis to like do their own thing. They just want power. But I feel like they wanted wanted their own independent power. Yes.
Right.
Sure.
But they still wanted independence for their people.
Exactly, right. So they wanted the power, but their goal would have accomplished like a net good. So I don't know. It's still like justified until Gahern is just like, well, we're gonna start killing off the non-new types. Like that's fucked up. But Which, you know, he's
worry,
the
he's
only
taken
one
care
who
of.
won that, and everyone else is like, oh, whoa,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, and it's definitely worth noting that Minerva Zabi, as the heir to that family, has seen so much more and so much of the damage caused by what her family did. And so I don't think that she would follow that same line of thinking.
No, she definitely doesn't. Which is
Yeah.
why Char never wanted to murder her.
Yeah, he has such an interesting reaction to her meeting her in Zeta Gundam.
Yeah. Well, Char also matures. How old is he in the 1 Year War? Like 19 or something?
He's young. I was looking at a timeline. So his father is assassinated in UC 68.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then and he's like 5 or 6. So by the time Zeta rolls around in 86.
Well, no, like in the 1 Year War, how old is he?
Oh, in the 1 Year War. Yeah, he can't be more than 25.
Yeah, he's definitely less than 25. So he's like a young man with hot emotions.
Yeah.
And he definitely, so he gets his original revenge, which he's, you know, does. But he mellows out, obviously, by his character in Zeta, he mellows out.
Totally.
But,
Quattro Vagina.
yeah. That's what I order at Taco Bell every time.
Oh, man.
It's good stuff. I love Gundam.
Yeah.
I really, really,
I do.
really liked Unicorn as a good in cap on like the whole saga.
Mm-hmm.
I like saying "I told you so."
You were right. Everybody was right. You know, Josh is listening to this. Josh was right. Chaz is listening to this. Chaz was right.
Good.
You know.
I'm glad.
Yeah. I was wrong this whole time.
Yeah, but now circling all the way back to the beginning of this podcast, where there's no more rivals. How do we?
Yeah, Full Frontal's really not a rival, but Full Frontal has his like lackey guy.
Oh well, I was referring to like you and I.
Oh, I see.
Where's
Oh
the
yeah, because
dynamic?
there's no headbutting about this.
Yeah, now it's just like, yeah, it's kind of like
Sure.
it's like the moment in when you're watching Gundam Wing at the very end, or I guess is it the end? Is it the end of Wing or the beginning of Endless Waltz where they like reveal that they are destroying their Gundams and sending them into the sun because like they don't need to have war anymore.
I think that's the beginning of Endless Waltz.
And I'm just like, what? But Gundams are cool.
Maybe it is the end of Gundam. No, because
No, the end is like they just like destroy the.
it must be
Libra.
the voiceover. Because like you just see Hero like in disguise.
Yeah. So they do. Okay. So anyway, but
It must be Endless Waltz.
yeah, they destroy the Gundams, and you're just like, but the Gundams are cool. But Universal Peace is cooler, so that's for the whole thing.
yeah.
So like in this situation, it's like, well, I liked having the rivalry, but
Yeah.
having you be on
Peace
the
is gonna
right
be
side
nice.
of history is better.
Right,
So I
right.
guess it's fine.
Fair point. Yeah. And I've come around on. I mean, the Zaku is an amazing design, and all the iterations of the Zaku are all great.
I know. I
There's only so many GMs you can look at.
yeah, GMs look the same all the time, and it's annoying. Xeon mobile suits look like wild and wacky every single time. Some
Yeah.
of them are cool, some of them are really stupid, but you know that's how it goes.
Absolutely how it goes.
Well, good. So
Yep.
it's resolved.
We did it. Gundam.
Gundam.
In the box.
Now we can do a bonus episode later on if you want to watch Double Zeta with me.
Oh, damn. Don't tempt me.
Chaz is watching Double Zeta.
Oh, yeah?
I think he almost finished it.
That's awesome.
And he's like, it does get really good at the end. So,
Yeah.
guess we can trust him. I mean, that's what everybody says.
Yeah. So everybody's told me. And it's on the list. I need to do it as I hop around. It took a lot of like control and be like, no, I have other things I need to accomplish today to not rewatch all of Unicorn Gundam after I rewatched my favorite episode. I was like, I could do it. It's only 7 hours.
It's so good. The score is good. The animation is good. The voice is good. It's
Yep.
great. It's like the culmination of everything
really
that should
good.
have been.
Yep. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah.
Glad we did Gundam.
Yeah, it was a good retrospective, I think. And whether or not we've convinced anyone to watch Gundam, it's anyone's guess.
Yeah.
Probably not. Everyone's just going to be like, robots are dumb. I'm going to go watch, I don't know, whatever, Moe Moe, Kyun Kyun Time is up next.
I don't even think that's in vogue anymore. We just dated ourselves.
Yeah, what are the kids watching?
I don't know. Ray Zero? ReZero?
ReZero's good, though. That's fine. I don't know what the kids are watching, yeah. That'll be our next special report. What the kids are watching.
What are the kids watching? Yeah. Leave us a comment and let us know what your kids are watching. Or if you are a child.
Yeah, tell us what's cool. So you can remain hip.
What's hip?
Yeah, that's it. That's all we got.
That's all we got. That's Gundam.
That's Gundam. So leave us a comment, as Kenny said, at our website at www.anibrospodcast.com. Or if you were sick of this and you never want to hear Gundam again, but you still want to support our growing channel, I guess you could call it, go to www.anibrospod. No, not that one. www.anibroscreative.com.
There we go.
And listen to other people talk about stuff because
Yeah.
I mean, there's guaranteed. Let's place our bets right now. I'm gonna post this episode, and I'm gonna say plus or minus 2 days. Jen, and in her infuriating timing, will one up me and bury my episode by one every time. Happens. Check right now. It's always like within 3 days. She like puts a new one in.
I think it's because we don't pay attention to the schedule. Or that they have a schedule and we don't.
No, because I'm sure there isn't a new episode right now, but as soon as I post one, there'll be one. That's it always happens like this, and I don't understand. But
Hey, there's our rival.
yeah, there you go. Their rival. So I'm just gonna wait until they post theirs, and I'm gonna post ours right above it.
Perfect. It's the healthy way to do it.
You know, passive aggressive.
yeah.
What I've learned from Japan is be passive aggressive and don't cause conflict, but
There we go.
but cause animosity, silent animosity. That's what I've learned.
Perfect. Yeah. And folks can find us on Twitter at Anibros Creative. And you can find me on Twitter at Sakoku_otaku.
Yep, I'm on Twitter at Laven Buff. That's it. That's all I got.
Perfect. We need, I should have queued up the approaching mobile suit.
I can put that in. Do you want that?
Do
where,
it.
Where do you want that? Here, now, or at the beginning?
All the time. All the time.
Just like,
It's periodically throughout.
okay.
It's like the most nostalgic Gundam sound.
The most nostalgic one for me is the all the sounds from Gundam Wing are the nostalgic sounds for me.
Sure.
Okay, well,
Fantastic.
let's end it.